Hi, my name is Sarah Starr, and I do weekly webinars on all kinds of healthy habit tips, food management, emotional management, healthy habits, you name it. So this week we are talking about how to become the master of your blood sugars, basically eating in a way that you feel calm and stable throughout the day versus all these highs and lows of crazy hunger. So I'm going to be going over a few different things. First of all, is understanding the insulin response. So what happens when you eat food to your blood sugars? Secondly, we'll be talking about an ideal fueling schedule throughout the day. Then we'll be talking about the 9-inch plate system, followed by understanding glycemic index, and then protein carb balancing. So it's going to be a whirlwind, and it's lots of little topics that you might want to dive in deeper to as well. And I'll probably do future trainings on these topics, but this is a summary of what's going to help you understand how your blood sugars work and how to manage them in a powerful way. So let's start the slideshow. Quick screen share. All right, there we are. So why does it even matter if our blood sugars are balanced or not? A lot of you, unless you've got diabetes, maybe don't think about blood sugar balance, but it turns out that the way that we encourage diabetic people to eat is actually a really powerful way for everyone to eat. And it helps your body access the energy stored on it, which a lot of the times we spend a lot of time sending energy to fat cells, but our body really never pulls from it during the day. So we're going to teach you how to circulate that energy better, which is going to increase your metabolism, protect your lean muscle mass. So those people of you who are trying to build muscle, if you're not eating correctly, it's never going to happen. So we're going to talk about that, suppressing your appetite, getting your energy and mood evened out. And all of this will also naturally lower your cholesterol. So let's take a look at the typical eating pattern for a modern American. So on the bottom, it's the food that they're consuming throughout the day. And then we've got a few different lines. That thick orange line is your insulin in your bloodstream. The dotted line is your blood glucose. Now, when you eat food, the carbohydrates and sugar in the food get turned into glucose. And as you can see, that morning orange juice spikes your blood glucose. And when the glucose goes up, your body responds by secreting insulin. And the insulin's job is to push your blood sugars down. And so the morning orange juice came and your body let out the insulin and it started to push it down and your blood sugars crashed. See how they go way below the baseline insulin and the baseline glucose because the insulin really did its job well. But then when it crashed out, you got really hungry again. So you ate that bagel, spiked your blood sugars. And again, the insulin came out and pushed it down. Now, when we're looking at this screen, notice that those baseline insulin and blood glucose, the glucose is doing this roller coaster and the insulin really never even gets close to the baseline level, that blue dotted line. It's always up there just trying to push down all day, just secreting. So you have high insulin levels and crashing blood sugars. So this is unfortunately how a lot of us eat when we're just eating a lot of carbohydrates and not eating the correct way. So the way that I suggest to eat and the way that I eat and I teach my clients is to balance blood sugars. And the way we do that is understanding the type and timing of food to eat and how that affects insulin. So what I propose and what has been basically suggested since the 80s for people balancing blood sugars, hypoglycemia, weight, energies, are smaller, more frequent meals that are more protein carb balanced with a lower glycemic index. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but ideally, what we're talking about is eating every 2 to 3 hours in a more controlled way. There was actually a study by David Jenkins at the University of Toronto, and it took 2 groups of people, and they were both eating the exact same food throughout the day. One of the groups was eating the meals in 3 meals, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The second group take that exact same food and broke it up over 6 eating times. So it was those smaller meals. And what they found was that the group who ate over 6 smaller eating times lost more weight and increased cholesterol drop by 15% more than the other group. So definitely timing matters. And so this is why balancing blood sugars really comes down to paying attention to the clock. I try to eat every 3 hours while I'm awake, no shorter than 2, no longer than 3. So this means that I eat right away when I wake up. There was a I think it was the registry for, I can't remember the name of the company. They did a study, a really large study of people who had managed to lose weight and keep it off. And they looked at markers for what made these people similar. And what they found was remarkably across most of the group, everyone who managed to keep their weight off was very good at eating breakfast every single day. So none of this waking up hungry and going to the gym before you have your breakfast. It's so important to start your day off by putting something in your body that's going to turn on your metabolism for your day. Your metabolism is your engine. So that's going to get everything cranking. It's going to get your emotions evened out. So we want to start the day off with a healthy breakfast. And then my eating schedule is I wake up around 6:30. I have breakfast at 7, a little snack around 10, lunch around 12, 1, another snack around 3 or 4, dinner around 7, and then a really light, healthy snack about an hour before bed. Now, as you can see from this chart, it's very different from the previous one, right? We don't have these huge spikes and it's never crashing below baseline glucose. So when we're eating smaller meals with less carbohydrate density, your blood sugars are going up slower and more gradually and coming down more gradually. And you can see the insulin also is not spiking. It's going up a little gradually after and staying gradual. So all these levels are staying right around the baseline insulin level. So how do you accomplish this? And it's, now that we know that you need to eat by the clock, what does the actual food look like? So this is where the 9-inch plate system comes in handy. The US government loves this system as well. I was born under the food pyramid days, which was a disaster, and people were way overdoing it on carbohydrates as they were trying to cut out healthy fats. So what we know now is that the portions are really important. So imagine your dinner plate, and it's only 9 inches. So if you're like most people in your kitchen cabinet, your dinner plate's a lot bigger than that. So I would recommend go to the store and buy some 9-inch plates. You can even go on Amazon and type in 9-inch plate system, and you'll find a plate like this that has the sections even gridded out for you. But the way that we can portion our meals correctly so that our blood sugars stay even is looking at this diagram. Half the plate is fruits and vegetables. So 50% of your plate in an ideal meal are these really good earth-grown categories. If you're trying to maintain a healthy weight, 25% fruits is great. If you are trying to drop weight, I would suggest decreasing the fruit or even eliminating it altogether, and you can take your vegetables all the way up to 50%. But at least half that plate is fruits and vegetables. Then a quarter of your plate is grains, just a quarter. This isn't one of those spaghetti dinners where there's a huge pile of pasta with some meatballs on top. It's just 25% of this portion. So that could be rice, that could be potatoes, that could be your bread, that could be a good quinoa. We're looking for good, healthy whole grains. And then 25% is a protein. Look for good low-fat proteins. Want to look for light meats, nothing that leaves you feeling super greasy, but a good, healthy protein. It could be legumes, it could be low-fat cheeses, it could be your proteins, your meats. But this is a really good example of a balanced meal. Now, you'll notice that there isn't dairy on here. More and more people are not really considering dairy as a category that a lot of people really need. They're great for babies, but as we grow older, less and less people really need dairy or even tolerate dairy. So if you want to have it, that's fine, but I would suggest really only sticking with low-fat milk or low-fat yogurts if you want to include dairy in your meals. I have an intolerance. It makes me gaggy. I don't like it. I feel like most people, if they're being honest, feel better if they're not eating tons of dairy. All right, so let's talk about the glycemic index for a minute. So the types of food within these categories is important. So we talked about these 4 different categories: the vegetables, fruits, dairies, grains. How do we know how to pick from these categories? So this is where the glycemic index really becomes important. Glycemic index basically is a measure of how quickly your blood sugars spike. Remember those blood glucose spikes in that first chart? The glycemic index measures how quickly a certain food will spike your blood sugars. 1 is the slowest and 100 is the highest. And so looking for items that have a lower score on the glycemic index means that that food will keep you fuller longer. Your blood sugars are going to go up slower and come down slower. So something like almonds have a lower glycemic index than a cooked carrot, which is going to spike your blood sugars, or a glass of orange juice. So there's lots of different factors that influence their glycemic index score. So carrots are a great example. Uncooked raw carrots have a glycemic index of around 35, which is pretty good. It's nice and healthy. When you cook it though, and you process it and it breaks down into starches, suddenly carrots have a very high glycemic index, and a cooked carrot really will spike your blood sugars. Ripeness also, you take a kind of semi-ripe banana versus a very ripe banana. Guess which one will spike your blood sugars? One is more broken down, and it's going to hit your blood sugars a little faster. So ideally, you want to look for foods that are as processed as minimally as possible. So this even includes like your pasta. There's a reason we want to have our pasta al dente. The less you cook it, the more work your body has to do to break it down, the slower it takes in your system versus totally blasting your pasta and having it just hit your body like mush. So low glycemic index scores of 55 or less means it's pretty good for your body. It's not going to hit your insulin like a hammer. Medium, 59 to 69. High glycemic index choices are 70 or above. If you're not sure about a food, or you're just curious about foods you're always eating, just do a Google. There's lots of categories and websites online where you can go and you can put in a specific food and it'll tell you the glycemic index of it. Now, this works for your vegetables, your fruits, your dairies, and your grains. Now, meats, however, oils, nuts, seed, herbs, they do not have carbs. Well, the ones that don't have carbs, they don't have a glycemic index because they don't have carbohydrates. So these ones we're looking more at fat percentages, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. All right, so in the worksheet that goes along with this lesson, and you'll see in the description, there's a link to it. I've put some of these charts in the back just to give you an idea of some categories of food. So here's glycemic index charts. The one on the top corner here are your fruits. So you can see fruits with low glycemic indexes are avocados, limes, lemons, grapefruit. And then as you go down this chart, 50 or less, 50 or more, you see things like apples in the middle, and then mangoes, grapes, kiwis in the highest. This isn't to say that you can't eat a higher glycemic fruit, but just know that if you're going to have them, balance them out. And when possible, try to go for the lower glycemic one. I love strawberries. I eat them all the time. They're so great. I really also love blueberries, but knowing that they're higher glycemic, I'm not going to just eat them all the time. And then here's another sample chart here for your pastas. Notice wild rice has a very low glycemic index of 35, but on the higher levels, pre-cooked rice, just regular white cooked rice, has a glycemic index level of 90. So how processed a food is really matters. And this is especially why it's so important to really look for whole wheat. When they process wheat and enrich it, they strip away all the little bits of that wheat kernel that make it take longer to digest in your body. And it's really not very effective at keeping you full and satisfied. So make sure to check the worksheet for more examples of this, and tons more information online too about all these different categories. All right. Now, another way that you can slow down glycemic index response is say that you want to have a blueberry and you want to make sure that your food keeps you full for a while. So if you just eat the blueberry by itself, it'll spike your blood sugars and they'll come down pretty fast, and you'll probably be hungry in about 45 minutes. That's why I really like to teach people about protein carb balancing, because if you eat that blueberry, but you pair it with a little bit of, maybe you mix it in with Greek yogurt, the protein is going to slow down the absorption of blood sugars. So when you have not just blueberries, but blueberries mixed in Greek yogurt, your blood sugars go from just doing this to doing more like this, which is why I really recommend, for those little snacks you're having throughout the day, you have your breakfast, your lunch, and a dinner with a good protein in each one. But for those 3 healthy snacks that you're having mid-morning, mid-afternoon, and evening, see if you can put a protein carb balanced snack together. So one that I really like doing are, fruit and Greek yogurt. That's a really easy one. Or apple dipped in low-fat peanut butter is a really good one. You've got your protein and your carb. A tomato with a little bit of low-fat mozzarella cheese is another good one. So start brainstorming about what some of your favorite snacks are and ask yourself, is there a good protein carb balance to this? And then for those of us who run around and are super busy, there are definitely meal replacement options you can use for this. So when you go to the store, you'll see all kinds of meal bars out there. The ones that I recommend to my clients, I really want to make sure that you guys understand, when you're looking for protein carb balancing, that means when you look at the nutritional label, you want the proteins and the carbohydrates to be as matched up as possible. So the bars that I use with my clients have 15 carbohydrates and 15 proteins, 100 calories, and it's the perfect little snack. So if you want to simplify it, feel free to use fuelings like that when you're out and on the run and don't want to stop at fast foods. Or if you're making these yourself, just try to balance a protein and a carbohydrate. But it really, really does help understanding protein carb balancing, which is why, you never just want to sit down and have a glass of orange juice. There's no protein balance behind it. So if you're going to have a glass of orange juice, maybe have a couple of nuts with it or something, just something to balance it out. Some other ideas of healthy 100-calorie snacks that you can use for those 3 meals. And I printed this in the worksheet as well. What do we have here? 2 battery-sized pieces of cheese with a tomato. We've got the blueberries and yogurt in there. Chicken salad wrapped in lettuce. Baby carrots dipped in hummus. There's so many little ideas. So just go through, do a little brainstorm, and come up with your own list of snacks that you can have that make you happy, that you can protein carb balance with. So I know we went through a lot today, but I just want you to understand that this is not as hard as it might sound to start. It's all about coming up with a grocery list that you are excited about. And I keep my grocery list pretty similar time after time. So I hope this is helpful. And please let me know if you have any questions with this. I do private nutritional coaching as well. I help clients with weight loss, weight maintenance, understanding how to overcome food addiction. If this is something you want more help with one-on-one, reach out. I've been coaching since 2012. I love helping people with this. I want you to make sure that the food you put in your mouth makes you feel good. So whenever you're eating, the question to ask yourself is not, what do I want to eat? It's how do I want to feel? Because you really can manage your emotions, your feelings through understanding how to put the correct food in your body at any particular time. My name is Sarah Starr. You can find more information at my website, sarahstarcoaching.com. Please check out the accompanying worksheet that goes along with this lesson. You'll find the link to it in the comments or in the description box. And go through it, implement what we've talked about, start practicing some of this, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.